I often get comments on my channel asking how much fabric they need to get for their project, and I usually don't have a straight answer to it because it depends on a lot of factors like fabric width, the size of the pattern of the fabric, if they want to match the pattern, or if the fabric shrinks. I have a lot of hat making videos on my channel, and if you're making a hat with a small brim like a cap type, and you probably need half yard of any fabric, and that's probably enough. But if you're making a hat with wide brims, you probably want to have 1 yard. But what I always recommend is to prepare the patterns first, especially if you're making a garment. If your pattern doesn't have seam allowances, add the seam allowances and cut them all out, and then you can lay all the pieces on a flat surface to measure how much fabric you need. When you're making a garment at home, you're probably cutting out all the pieces on the fold, which means that you're going to fold the fabric in half lengthwise and cutting out all the pieces once to produce 2 of the mirrored pieces for both sides of the garment. On the table or on the bed, pick one side to represent the folded edge of fabric, then measure half of the width of the fabric from the edge, and then place the measurement tape to create the other side of the fabric. And then you're going to arrange all the pattern pieces within the rectangle that you just created to know exactly how much fabric you're going to need. And sometimes when you're arranging the patterns, you can flip pattern pieces if the fabric you're looking at doesn't have nap. Nap is the direction of the fiber of the fabric. So if you're using velvet, velveteen, or corduroy, you probably shouldn't flip your pattern pieces. But some flat woven cotton or linen, you can flip the pattern pieces to save space on the fabric. When you're trying to determine if the fabric has a nap or not, make sure to hold it vertically and look at it under the natural light. When you're arranging your patterns, pay attention to the green lines on the pattern pieces, which should be parallel to the edge of the fabric, which is going to be the edge of the table or the bed. Also pay attention to the on-fold signs, which looks like this, and arrows on the ends. When you're measuring half width of the fabric, just subtract about 1 or 2 inches even to accommodate the shrinkage of the fabric when you pre-wash the fabric before cutting. And if I'm at the fabric store and without any concrete plan for what I'm making, and I find some perfect fabric for something and I want to buy it, I probably shouldn't, but if I have to, I would buy about 3 or 4 yards. Depending on the price of the fabric, of course. If it's a really expensive fabric, I'll probably buy 2 yards and plan on making something small like a top with short sleeves, tank tops, or a mini skirt. If I was making anything for an adult male, I would get at least 4 yards. And all these measurements were for apparel fabrics. Then if you're looking at a quilting cotton, which you probably shouldn't be, but some of the African cotton, Japanese cotton, they come in very narrow width, like 40 inches or 45 inches. In that case, you probably need a lot more. So it really depends on what you're looking at and what kind of things you want to make. Also, pattern matching. If you want to match the pattern, especially like a big plaid patterns, you need to add about half or even 1 yard to the measurement that you just came up with, because you have to sometimes adjust the placement according to the pattern. But usually 3 yards would let me make anything, a dress even. But if I am sure that I'm going to make a long dress with sleeves, I would probably buy like 4 yards. But this all depends on the size. If you are very small, you could probably get away with buying 2 yards for a dress. But if you're like me and I'm about medium size in the US, I usually get 3 or 4 yards. If you're bigger, you probably need a little bit more. But I strongly recommend preparing your patterns first. And sometimes if you're going to the physical stores, you can bring the patterns, and if it's not too busy, the salesperson will usually help you arrange the patterns on the fabric to know exactly how much you need. But it is good to have some ballpark of the yardage that you need. If you have a store-bought pattern like this, you can look at the back of the pattern and they usually tell you how much fabric to get. So they already calculated everything according to the sizes and the width of the fabric. This is a vintage pattern and they used to have much narrower fabric, and the modern fabric usually comes in 58 or 60 inch wide. So according to this, you need less than a yard for a vest and less than a yard for a short skirt and less than 2 yards for pants. So I'm probably very generous when I buy fabric. And on the instruction piece, it shows you how to place the pattern pieces on the fabric. So they already did all the work for us. You just need to follow these directions. Here are some other vintage patterns for a reference. For this dress that comes down to about the knee length, for the dress you need about 3 yards of 58 or 60 inch wide fabric. And for this wrap skirt, for the shorter version you need about 2¼ yards of 60 inch wide fabric, and for a long skirt you need about 4 yards of 60 inch wide fabric. So this is how I usually figure out how much fabric I need. But if you have any trick to calculate how much fabric to buy, please let me know in the comment section. I'm always happy to learn new tricks. If you have any questions about sewing or crafting, I'm happy to answer. As long as I can provide some kind of answer, I'm happy to do it in future videos, so please leave those in the comment section too. If you want to start sewing and you don't know where to start, I have a video tutorial and a free pattern you can start with, so you can check that out. Or you can start with some small projects like hats. Thank you for watching and happy sewing!